Mhm. Hmm? Oh, fuck. Okay, I'm gonna get started with the lunch and learn. Give me 1 second. Okay, for today, our lock token for SharePoint. Currently, we are using the old SharePoint API permissions. So eventually in the future, we'll be moving towards the graph APIs. So just wanted to preface with that. Over here would be the portal view in Azure. Here you can see, I just created one called OAuth testing version 1. And you can see different items on the overview, which will be important in our decisions later on, like the application ID and the directory tenant ID. Okay. First, let's make a secret. I'll create a new secret here, and we'll just call it 1922 Lunch and Learn version 1. When you first create the secret value inside of Azure, this value is not visible later on. So if you don't record this, it will be gone. You will have to make a new one. You can see that it has an expiration date as well. I'll be starting in little notepad of different values. Let me navigate back to the overview over here. And let me grab the client ID. And directory ID. After making the secret, we're going to go over here to API permissions. We would add permissions. For our purposes, we're looking for the SharePoint one, which is right there. Give me 1 second to pull something up really quickly. Okay, so we're going to be using the application permissions. There's different permissions that you can define. There's like site self full control, which is like the highest permission. There's like manage permissions, read all, sites read write, site selected, stuff like that. I'm going to add every single one of them. And they'll specify over here that if you need admin consent, someone who has administrative access for your portal tenant inside of Azure would have to grant that. we're just gonna add these permissions. Okay, as you can see, all of these require admin consent, but they haven't been granted. I have administrative rights, so I'll be granting it myself right now. We'll be clicking here. Yes. And now it's all green. Okay. Since I've created this application, I wouldn't have to add myself in as a user, but let me preface this beginning. To add permissions when you're creating a tenant inside of Azure, you would need to add all these for the app registration. That is where all this information is. This is where this menu is. If you are trying to do add users and stuff like that, you would have to go over to the enterprise application section. And that's where you can go down here and then add users and groups and add them in. I'm already in here since I created this app. Okay. Now that we have that information, let's go over to our Lunch and Learn and decisions. I'm just gonna create a data folder for today for the example. And then give me one moment as I swap screens.
Hey, Sin, if you're talking right now, dear, you're on mute.
I was definitely on mute. I was going over the different token authorized URLs. I'm copying everything with the basic formatting in. I'll change it in a second. This is the token request URL recently. There has been the v2.0 release, as you can see right here. And then you can see that this is the token URL that responds with token. This is the authorized URL that responds with authorized. Not every OAuth provider necessarily uses this formatting, but it's a common one that is used. For the callback URL, this would actually be our decisions instance base portal URL. So as you can see up here, this is mine. And then at the very end, you will add handle token response, like so that this is our endpoint for getting back OAuth tokens. I will also preface this really quickly that this is how it's not a caveat from decisions, but it's a caveat from Microsoft, where the URL that you're using for when you're requesting these tokens have to be on HTTPS. So we can't use it on like HTTP. So if you run into any issues, that would be why. And then I will put in the consumer key, consumer secrets, and change that kind of information. Okay. Just put this over here, and then put this over here. This was the information we had grabbed earlier. This is the directory ID. We'll be replacing the item in the square brackets here. With it. Replacing square bracket items here as well. This is the client ID, which should go into the default consumer key. And then the client secret that we got earlier should go into the default consumer key. You can save. Once we've added the provider, we can create a token. We will look for the one that we just made, which is under the Lunch and Learn. So I'll just call this 5.1.22 version 1. We'll leave everything else checked. And then I will be grabbing this is what the scope should be. It's the general format will be HTTPS, whatever your tenant name is, .sharepoint.com/.default. .default will give us all of the permission for that you are allowed in Azure. Though I've seen some companies have restrictions around .default and will require you to use the actual names, such as all sites, .full control, and stuff like that as the formatting. And then offline access is how we would get refresh data for auth code, which we're trying to use here. Let me just fill this out. Once I finish this, I will go back and address your question, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay. We can request access. Once you do, it'll try to log you in. This is expected. Then my username here. Got the password. Once you sign in and approve it, you'll see that the token has been processed successfully. You can close this. Let's see, what's the question? Is there an easy way to extract entities and case entities? By transferring environments, are we trying to move from like an old version of like a QA server, for example, into like a new version of a QA server?
No, from dev to QA. or so, or yeah, so basically, more accurately, I have data that I like to work with in production, but I'd like to move it down an environment or two into UAT or QA so that I can test things out. And yeah, so I can't find it. I can't seem to export, a handful of case entities and then load them into other environment. Can't seem to see how to do that.
You might be able to at least copy the data from the database if you have access with that. But if there's a way
Okay.
inside of decisions, I'm not entirely sure. We might be able to, but I haven't tested a lot with trying to get all the data inside of a case entity into another environment.
Okay.
Just
Right,
yeah, go ahead, Josh.
should I put a ticket into support, or what should I do?
Sin, do you recommend Josh raising a support ticket for that?
Yeah, I'm just asking if this is more of a support question than lunch and learn question.
Yeah, and I was also wondering, Josh, so when you say the data from the case entities, is it like the data that is stored in the table that gets created when we are handling case entities?
I don't know exactly. Basically, I have the case entity, and it wants to have all of the. All I need is like I write a lot of like attribute data to it, I guess. So I just need sort of the value and the
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff inside there to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sin was suggesting to download that data and then re-upload in that instance. That's one way that Sin was talking about. And the other crazy idea that I can think of is, I just would create a simple flow that'll kind of grab the information from that entity, and then I'll expose that flow into that new environment that you have. Like I'll just call that API, and that will be just a one-time use, right? So that one-time use, yeah, I will just get the data and that populate my entity in the production environment. And then once that transfer is done, then I can use that data the way we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will try those things.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions that you have?
Not at this time.
Negatives. Okay, I'm going to be switching back over to my screen and going through the rest of it. We'll create a little flow. And we'll call this SharePoint testing v1 flow. Here, there's different SharePoint steps that you can get. There's different ones you can also get if you integrate in with the SharePoint lists and document libraries. Actually, give me 1 second. Swap over to this one. Okay. So I've set up 2 different things. We have a lunch and learn document library and a lunch and learn list over here. So let's try to integrate with those actually. Go over to SharePoint. We can add in the SharePoint document library. The category name is whatever you want to name it. This can be lunch and learn for this example. For the document library name, that'll be related to our list. Give me 1 second to get the formatting really quickly from the other one. It should just be the name of whatever the listed items are. So we'll switch over here. For this one, it's called Lunch and Learn List. Just copy that. Here. For the SharePoint settings, we'll be using OAuth. The OAuth token should be a 19 Lunch and Learn SharePoint one. And the site will be the SharePoint site and my site, which is Sim Testing. Say okay. And if it's all successful, it shouldn't have any issues. It's having issues seeing this. Might have messed up the permission on my SharePoint recently. My testing. Let's see. Or is it just too new since I just made it? That's fine. Just edit our new one of my existing ones and just swap it over to use the previous OAuth token. It's me. Definitely messed up my permissions at some point. Oh, now we can figure out how to look at the permissions for our OAuth token when it goes wrong. Okay, so much. The steps. Yeah. Maybe I messed with a lot of permissions. Okay. Give me 1 second. Go over to the Lunch and Learn ones over here. Just gonna break my lock. We'll be looking for the OAuth token. So again, let's add in a fetch criteria for the entity name. Spec equals to a contains constant at 1922. Quick debugging now. Okay, let's grab that token data. We can go to different websites like gwp.io to decode this. Let's get here. And we can look different permissions. Let's see. They recently locked that down. I wonder if the Microsoft permission just got changed, because that is the only scope that I have that explains a lot, actually. Okay. Since I only have user.read scope, that is not enough permissions for me to see the Sharepoint items. So I guess I will be explicitly making those tokens. Yep. Copy over that scope. Despite the formatting on the Azure site, this is not the format. This is the proper format on the Azure site. If you look at the scope, typically you should be able to see like, this is the format that you should be passing it in as. It is not. For some reason, it does not match. They have changed it from that. So, should be this. All sites have full control, offline access. Awesome, let's request that token. There we go. Accept that, awesome. Now, if I do another fetch, should be two. We'll exit out this real quickly. Okay, there should be two different results. Ooh. Don't know what I just clicked there. Sort on. Yep, that should be the second one. Let's grab that data field to verify this time. As you can see here, the scope has changed. Now I have all sites off full control. Let's go to SharePoint site. Let's add that SharePoint list again. Pick a name over here. And document library. OAuth. This should be the second one. We're not liking those permissions. Oh, forgot to put the SharePoint site here. Silly me. That's there. Clicked on the wrong thing. We'll just do lunch and learn list then. This will take a little bit to save because as you're saving this, it's creating new steps for that specific list or document library.
Then you're on mute.
I need to be better at being mindful of that. My bad. Go back over to my decisions really quickly. It took a little bit because it was generating the steps. As you can see, I was trying to use the add folder to add a folder to that list. It's successful. I'll be navigating over here, and I was going to refresh. Let's give it a little moment to populate. Okay, let's see it's coming through. I don't think my internet's liking me right now. Let's try adding in an item instead. We're gonna ignore the folder path and then add in a title. Should create one item. There we go. Okay. Then we should be able to fetch the one item we just added. Sorry for the mess for the steps. Just clean that up really quickly. Fetching all the items, there should be one. So let's try integrating with a SharePoint document library really quickly. Also, I was going to mention this. This time it will be our doc library. SharePoint site. This will be our routine secondary token. Take a moment for the steps to generate. Under the doc library, we can add a document. Let's change this to a constant. New image. Adding a document, we're gonna have this as a constant. This image over here. click debug. And now we should see the item over here. Well, it's mostly just going to be a quick overview of OAuth and some SharePoint capabilities from beginning to end. If we don't have any other questions, we can end it here.
Thank you, Sin.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everyone.